Hello and welcome to Business Daily on Trust Television, and we are here to serve you updates from the world of business, economy, finance, and the stock market is not left out. I am your host, Christiana Amodu Otinya. Thank you for joining in. First, we begin with the headlines. We begin from the MSME sector. MSMEs lending. Nigerian small businesses suffer $32.2 billion losses finance gap in the year 2022. And now to the entertainment industry. Movie industry revenues. Nigerian cinemas generate 6.94 billion naira in 2022. We'll give you more stories in the business roundup segment of the program. I'll take a short breather. When we come back, we'll get straight into the stock market. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's get straight into the stock market. We'll begin from Customs Street, talking about the local bus in Nigeria. And we are seeing the trading activities on the floor of the Nigeria exchange close with a gain of 154 billion naira in market capitalization. As you can see here, there was a surge of 0.55% for the benchmark all share index, 51,729.87. Now on the activity chart, a total volume of 281.9 million shares valued at 8.1 billion naira changed hands in 3,679 transactions on the local bus. The equity cap settled at 28.17 trillion naira. So it was bullish for the stock market on Wednesday, midweek trade. Now, once the investors are watching to see if that will also move into the penultimate trade of the week. Now, let's go over to other African buzzes we bring to you on the program. So it's a sea of red here for South Africa and Ghana. The JSE is down 0.08%, 78,463. And for Ghana, we are seeing a downward trend of 0.12%. For South Africa, there's a whole lot going on, especially on the economic front in South Africa. Load shedding by South Africa's power utility Eskom. A lot of reactions have followed that, especially as how it is affecting households and affecting businesses. Ghana was in the news in the month of December significantly for issues around getting its lending from the International Monetary Fund. We saw a rebound, of course, for the Ghanaian cedi. Remember, it was adjudged as one of the worst currency against the dollar, but we saw that the cedi indeed bounced back to end the year 2022. Now let's move over now to the United States in Wall Street and see what's happening there. So the arrows on Wall Street are all pointing upwards. It's really a sea of green here for Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite up 1.76%, 1.28%, and 0.80% respectively. So we are all seeing this stay largely in the green. And for global markets now, the focus really is on the CPI that will come in from the United States later in the day. Investors are holding on to their hearts as to what the numbers will be for the inflation figures in the U.S. because economists are expecting that the consumer price index will dip by 0.1% for the month of December, because that will really give a signal or give cues to what to expect from the Jerome Powell-led Federal Reserve. He was speaking in Sweden recently, and he said it's always a tough decision to make for central bankers, but central bankers have their eye on inflation, basically reining in inflation to bring some sort of stability into that level. And the outlook generally for inflation is that the central bankers are still going to stay on the path of tightening for the significantly first half of the year 2023. Now let's go over now to European markets, where markets opened high as global investors geared up for the December reading of U.S. consumer prices. Now we are seeing the FTSE 100 is up 0.40%. In France, the CAC 6,959.15, up 0.50%. And in the German Strait, the DAX is up 0.25%. Over now to Asia Pacific region, where shares were also mostly higher as investors are also looking as to what the numbers for inflation in the United States will be. We are seeing investors in the Asia Pacific market reacting to, in terms of what to expect, especially for inflation. The Nikkei 225 in Japan is up marginally, 0.01%. In mainland China, we are seeing the Shanghai climb 0.05%. And in South Korea, the Kospi is up 0.24%. Remember, talking about mainland China, China has opened up its borders and is ready to do business with the other parts of the world after a zero-COVID policy. And we are seeing that the tides are turning in China. Now let's take a look at the commodities chart and see what's happening with prices. So we have two reds and the others are in the green. Brent crude, the international benchmark for crude oil, $82.62 per barrel there, down 0.05%. Now oil prices are also looking at what will happen, especially in terms of sanctions on Russian supply. The U.S. Energy Information Administration said the upcoming EU ban on seaborne imports of petroleum products from Russia on February 5 could be more disruptive than the EU ban on the seaborne imports of crude oil from Russia implemented in December 2022. Now, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said the country's oil producers have had no difficulties in securing export deals despite Western sanctions and price caps. So Russia is basically shrugging off these concerns that is coming up, especially for the oil market, and we're seeing investors in that market monitoring those news, those stories coming out from Russia. For the bullion, the yellow metal gold up 0.34% there, $1,882. Remember, gold is seen as a hedge against inflation, basically a safe haven, like how you run under an umbrella to find shade. So a lot of investors tend to put their money in the ornament commodity to ensure that their monies are safe and safe against inflation. For agro commodities, the only red we have here is from wheat, $739.21, down 0.11%. For cocoa and palm oil, we're seeing them staying significantly in the green. Now let's go over to the cryptocurrency market. Let's watch what's happening, especially with prices of crypto. Bitcoin, $18,116. So that's a fresh climb now for Bitcoin. You might be wondering what's happening. Why are we seeing this surge, especially for these cryptocurrencies? Of course, we are hearing news is coming out that FTX, the collapsed exchange crypto giant, recovered over $5 billion of assets, and that sent a nudge into the cryptocurrency market, and we're seeing some huge positive sentiment, especially for Bitcoin and Ethereum, the flagship cryptocurrency, $18,116. Ethereum, $1,397. Those are the numbers we have to crunch for you on the program today. I really want to get the thoughts of my guest on the program today, Stephen Nwachukwu. He's an investment analyst, and I know the stock market is largely his turf because he plays a lot in that market. So I want to get your thoughts, Steve. What do you think? What's the mood or the body language of the stock market in maybe 1 minute, if you can?
Of course, this is an earnings season, and investors at the nation's capital market all over the world are expecting beautiful report from companies, and good investors actually will be looking at dividend yields of companies. So you actually expect what you have seen in the last couple of weeks, of last couple of days. You found out that the index have gained close to 3 trillion naira, from about 25 trillion to now currently around 28 trillion. So it's a good development that will continue to see that very up in the market, so that the investors will reap, because a couple of days or weeks to come, you start seeing dividend declarations by companies, you start seeing expectation of dividends, and investors will definitely readjust and move their portfolio to where they actually think that the dividend yield will pay them more. So we see an up in days to come or weeks to come in the market.
Okay, so we expect more of the bulls to play in the market in days to come. You get to hear more from Stephen Nwachukwu during the conversation segment of the program. However, let's quickly bring you a roundup of business stories. Take a listen.
The contribution of micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs, to the Nigerian economy is dampened by an unmet finance gap of $32.2 billion, equivalent to 13 trillion naira. The International Finance Corporation disclosed this in a report titled Market Bite Nigeria. The corporation also said, although lending to the sector has grown by 42% to about 590 billion naira post-COVID, it is still not sufficient enough for MSMEs whose major problem is access to finance. The report added that MSMEs often lack the business and technical capacity to make successful loan applications, while small-scale entrepreneurs, often operating informally and on a micro scale, are commonly perceived as being too costly and too risky for financial institutions to serve. According to the survey, 4 primary funding sources for MSMEs are microfinance banks, which are the highest source of finance, providing $658 million, private equity and venture capital firms, which issued $640 million, and commercial banks, which contributed $340 million, as well as digital financial service providers. Nigerian cinema operators generated a total revenue of 6.94 billion naira in 2022 against revenue of 4.74 billion naira in 2021. The national president of the Cinema Exhibitors Association of Nigeria, Opeyemi Ajayi, disclosed this during an interview in Lagos. Ajayi added that Nigeria's movie industry continues to lead the recovery in Africa post-COVID pandemic. The CEAN president added that a 10 to 15% increase in ticket price would potentially drive box office revenue in 2023, as he expected positive growth by a minimum of 20%, as independent cinemas constituted 25% of the market share at present. Ajayi further predicted growth in the new year as 5 cinemas were opened in the 4th quarter of 2022, adding that a minimum of 3 new locations were expected to open in the first half of 2023.
Welcome back, and thank you for still staying there with us on the program. If you're just joining us, this is Business Daily coming to you from Trust Television, and we are here to keep you up to speed with developments in the world of business. This is the program where we mean business. So I have my guest here with me in the studio, Steve Nwachukwu, and we'll be looking at front row economic issues. Basically, there's been a whole lot happening in the front of the economy. I said some time ago that the first meal we were served this year for the economy was of course the 2023 budget, and now we are seeing that policies from the Apex Bank and from the banking sector are also taking full effect. We saw that the cash withdrawal policy by the Central Bank of Nigeria kick-started from January 9, and we have this report from respondents speaking, especially those POS respondents, speaking as to how this policy that has kick-started or taken off is also affecting their businesses, and what that means also for the end user or the consumers. Take a listen.
Central Bank of Nigeria recently raised the cash withdrawal limit set for individuals and corporate organizations to 500,000 naira and 5 million naira respectively. However, since the review, cross-section of Nigerians and POS operators have vocalized their concerns over the increase in the charges and limits of withdrawals.
Oh, it affected us. If government made any policy today, I want you to understand one thing: it's the masses. You understand? It's the masses that always affect. It affected us in so many ways. For instance, this issue of even the people that they are collecting 100, 200, they are the one that felt that really affects.
Before, customers were patronizing us in terms of withdrawing in a huge amount, but now as the police now employ customers, despite the fact they are allowed to withdraw using POS more than 100,000, but the bank is 100,000 naira only. Now they are no more coming to withdraw from us because we, the POS, were getting money through the bank, which we are not withdrawing more than 100,000.
This 100,000, if you went to the bank from the ATM, if you want to withdraw money, from that 100,000, 5% is their charges, which almost all the customers are complaining. And we, the POS, we are not okay with it. It affects us a lot.
POS operators said the policy has affected their businesses negatively as customers cannot withdraw large amounts like before.
It affects everybody from the top, right? It's not just one person, right? It begins like a circle. And then at the end, it's the people at the grassroots that suffers it. Because you see that more money salaries are not increased. So the person at the bottom, we keep giving and giving, and then there'll be nothing.
Most of the money that is generated from the government, we are the ones even generating it from them. We, like, our social welfare is not even included in the major things we are meant to be getting from what we are meant to be getting from the government.
Observers are of the view that the intervention of the Apex Bank with PEC's cash withdrawal limit can regulate the amount of cash outside the banking system and can also discourage promoters of vote buying.
Now, I want you to react to some of the comments there from respondents in the FCT, POS operators talking about how the new policy is affecting their business, and also Nigerians saying that the effect is trickling down across board to everyone in that chain. Let me have your thoughts.
I think the issue around the POS is just that there is no way you can call them POS or they are special people and you are still considering them as ordinary bankers or ordinary depositors or account holders with bank. As we speak now, both the bank and both the Central Bank of Nigeria have not classified them until they are classified as POS operator, a cadre in the banking system, whereby they will have a specific different rule that governs them. As we speak, individual can just open an account and start running POS. So the policy on the Central Bank of Nigeria on the withdrawal limit cut across them as an individual. The CBN does not even consider them as POS. If they are considered as POS, actually their limit should be higher than individuals like us. If my limit withdrawal is 100,000, it should be higher for a POS operator to help stimulate the use of cash in the system or to stimulate business activities whereby people can easily access the POS to raise or require cash to do their transactions. So CBN has to do that, classify them, bring them in by giving them a classification or whatever classification you want to give them. You can say the POS operators, your minimum withdrawal should be ₦1,000,000, should be 500,000, but something above the individual. So what is different between a POS and an individual like me? Their limit is 100,000, my limit is 100,000. So there's no difference. So CBN should need, if actually CBN considers them as a critical operator in the system to facilitate their policies on this cash withdrawal limit, they really need to classify them and give them a different limit from that of individuals.
I also want you to speak to, in the report that we are hearing respondents also calling for a reversal. I remember when the policy was announced, the adjustments were made after some weeks after we had the announcement. The CBN hearkened to what Nigerians were saying and there was an increment. Now, is there any sort of adjustment that can be made at this point to ensure that the burden is a little bit, the burden that these operators are carrying?
Exactly. I think the adjustments is just one of them, like I'm calling on CBN right now to actually classify the POS operator. That's the only way. As it stands, the 100,000 limit for Nigerians really resonates with Nigerians. You are not seeing Nigerians crying anymore. But when they did that of 20,000, everybody was crying. Even people like us said, yes, it's going to hurt entrepreneur. That 20,000 naira limit is not enough for an average entrepreneur to operate. So 100,000 naira is averagely okay for businesses to strive. But that of the POS, still leaving them with that same 100,000 is what we are calling on CBN or the policymaker to actually classify them, adjust this policy to give a classification for the POS operators, whereby you can give them something higher because they are servicing the entire public. If I withdraw, I'm only servicing my personal needs, but the POS operators are servicing the rest of Nigeria. So they should be given a different classification whereby they will have a higher limit withdrawal than individuals like us. That's the adjustment we are calling. On the issue of also possibility of adjustment or reversal, yes, I believe that CBN will actually tinker with the 31st January on that of the deposit of the old notes. I'm very sure that they are, because based on the statistics they read out last time, CBN told us that about 900 billion so far has been collected from the public. I'm sure that's not what CBN is, even less than $1 trillion naira. So we expect something somewhere around 2.53 trillion, because actually based on the information CBN said, they are looking at 3.2 trillion naira, and you are having less than 1 trillion naira already. So 31st is just about less than 19 or 20 days from now. So we also expect that CBN will adjust it so that the policy is not meant to hurt the economy, it's not meant to hurt Nigerians, but actually to serve a purpose and help stimulate the economy so that Nigerians' GDP and the rest will have an average growth for 2023.
Another aspect I want you to touch on now, talking about policies that have come to play, especially in the banking sector, and how it affects consumers or Nigerians in the financial system. Now, a lot of customers received emails and notifications from their banks on the suspension of international ATM withdrawals, POS payments, and web transaction using Naira card. I don't know if you also received from your bank, but I'm very sure a lot of Nigerians from top-tier banks, they received that notification. I want you to speak to what prompted this, and also the effects it's going to have on the financial system.
I think it's in line with this very low cash withdrawal limit and the rest. And from time to time, policymakers like CBN and the rest of them in the chain of the policies will always come up with one or two policies to actually accommodate. I believe that the intention of most of these policies is to help to help or stimulate the economy and to put the right policies so that businesses will strive, not actually to hurt it. So with the banks coming up with giving a new limit and all that, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, they also did something on the dollar deposit, and they also did something on the withdrawal, the limit you can actually access your DOM accounts and all that. So these are evolving policies, and I believe that all of them are held to stimulate the economy.
There's also the slant to this argument, and I want you to kindly answer in 1 minute, that this issue of suspending these transactions of Naira cards will further push business owners and manufacturers to the black market to source for forex. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I think there is a lot of pressure on the forex, and most of these policies are towards limiting the accessibility of Nigerians to frequently, because most times people say that Nigerians are luxurious, they live a luxurious life. People tend to stay here and buy something in Dubai, stay here and buy something in Brazil and all of that, and they are all a lot of pressure on the forex. So most of these policies trying to actually limit when you have difficulties in accessing or making your payments online and all that. It also reduces the flow of dollar out of these shores of Nigeria. So I think these are all technical things, but they may not be the direct reasons why. But I believe for sure that these are all technical measures taken by policymakers to actually reduce the exposure or the flow or the frequency of Nigerians asking for unreasonable and reasonable items abroad. So it's actually putting a lot of pressure on the forex, and CBN has to defend Naira if policies of this nature is not coming up. Actually, take for instance, somebody can be here and be buying something that he doesn't even need, and Naira or dollar has been already expended for that $10, for that $100 you bought that item, and you are not even sure there is no use for it and all that. You have actually taken away a $10 or $100 bill out of. So the balance of payment of Nigeria continues to suffer. So most of these measures reducing, because of this technological survey that Nigerians are becoming, we are exposed to the internet, we are seeing a lot to buy and a lot to whatever consumes, and we buy almost all we have. When you don't earn dollars and you are buying things in dollars, Nigerians, we don't earn dollars, but we want to buy things in dollars. So most of these measures to give you some limits and limitations helps to also reduce the dependency on these very items abroad.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Steve Wachuku, economic analyst. Thank you for always sparing time to come on the program to share your thoughts on the Nigerian economy.
Thanks for having me.
And I also look forward to when we'll actually be talking about the Naira being the currency of the world, just as we are talking about the US dollar.
That's the dream of every Nigerian.
Yes, yes, true. And that's where we draw the curtains for the program today. Thank you for investing your time with us on Business Daily on Trust Television. Don't forget, you can catch up on all the updates on our social media platforms. Go on YouTube, click the subscribe button, and also you get all the updates at your fingertips on your phones, your tabs, on your laptops. I am Christiana Amodu Otinya. Continues to stay safe, and bye for now.